Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Skills and Abilities. Today we're going to be looking at the Assassin skill known as Venom. Venom is an odd skill which does require a little bit of explanation for those of you who may be interested in using it. When you level up Venom, Venom has a poison damage which goes up, and it also has a duration which goes up. But the duration of the poison itself does not change. It stays at 0.4 seconds. 0.4 seconds is really, really short. When you think of poison, you don't necessarily think of... because that's how fast it is. Like, literally, when you hit somebody with this ability, it's instantaneous damage, which doesn't make any sense in my mind because you would think that Venom would be an effect that has a long duration, but it does not. Venom also has some rather odd effects when it interacts with other forms of damage. So when you add additional poison damage to your Venom ability, what happens is it forces that poison damage down to the duration of the Venom. Let me give you an example, shall we? So let's say, for instance, we had a poison damage charm. All right. So let me pull up my calculator here because this is going to take some unfortunate math, which I am terrible at. But we're still going to do it anyway because, you know, why not? So here's my calculator. Pull this up on the screen here, and we're going to run some calculations. All right, so let's assume we have a charm that has 240 poison damage over 10 seconds, right? 10 seconds is a rather long period of time, especially when you consider that 240 poison damage over 10 seconds isn't really that much damage per second. If we divide out 240 by 10, we will end up with 24 damage a second, which is not really a lot. But Venom is 0.4 seconds. It's even less than the duration of the duration of 1 second. So we have to take this 240 poison damage over 10 seconds, and we need to divide it by, instead of 10, we need to divide it by 100. And you might be asking, well, why are we dividing it by 100? Because we need to break it up into individual decimal points, not seconds. We need to break it up into 0.1 second intervals. This is the easiest way to do this kind of thing, and we will have 240 divided by 100 equals 2.4 damage per second, per 0.1 of a second. So a tenth of a second, rather. Then we're going to multiply this by 4, which is going to get us 9.6 damage. So the 240 poison damage small charm is only going to add 9.6 damage to our Venom ability. This is the really strange thing about Venom, is that Venom caps everything at its 0.4 seconds. And that is kind of odd. However, I have made a mistake already. And you might be asking, well, what is that mistake? Well, the mistake is that Poison Dagger, which is the one ability in the game that does not interact with Venom the same way that other poison effects do. So Poison Dagger, which poisons over 11.6 seconds, the duration of the poison will be set to 12 seconds, so 11.6 plus 0.4. So we end up with an addition instead of a reduction. And the Venom will provide a total of 9,150 to 9,750 damage over that period of time. So what you have to understand is that just like in the scenario where the 240 poison damage charm was being forced into the category of the effect for Venom, Venom is being forced into the category for the Poison Dagger. So you have to take the numbers for the poison of Venom, and you have to actually add it to the dagger in much the same way that we just did the calculation for the Poison Small Charm, but in reverse. Now we have to do level 15 Venom, because the only way for a Necromancer to get Venom would be to use an item. Treachery is one such item that has a level 15 poison dagger, a level 15 Venom proc. So let's reset my character real quick, and let's bring up our Venom just to level 15, and that way we can get an idea of what our damage is. And we're going to run this calculation real quick. So we have 350 to... oh, sorry. I was calculating in the plus the skills. My bad. There we go. So we have 305 to 325. All right. So let's run this on a calculator, shall we? All right. So here we go. We've got the calculator. Bink. Why is it not up on the screen? There we go. All right, so we have our 305 to 325 damage, right? Well, the thing here is that because it's over 0.4 seconds, we've got to divide this out and figure out what it would be over the full duration of the 12 seconds for Poison Dagger. All right, so we have to first get it to a second, which is the easiest way to do this, or at least that's the way I like to do it in my head, which is 325 divided by 4, which is going to give us our tenth of a second. And then we're going to multiply that by 10, which is going to give us the full second. So in a full second, Venom does 812 damage, 812.5. And then we have to multiply that by 12, which is going to get us our total number over 12 seconds. And as you can see, because of the way that Venom works, because of how short of a duration is, when you stretch out Venom over a longer duration, Venom does a larger amount of damage. But the problem with Venom is that it's only applied on hit and only for 0.4 seconds, which means that you would have to attack extremely fast to make Venom do the kind of damage that it can do when utilized with Poison Dagger. So having Venom on a Poison Dagger Necromancer is actually extremely good because it is going to add a rather large amount of poison damage to your effect. However, any other poison damage, as we just discovered, has to be reduced to the 0.4 seconds that Venom uses. Now, that's not necessarily a terrible thing. It's not decreasing the amount of poison damage that those of charms and items that you have dish out. What it is doing is it's normalizing it to that 0.4 seconds. It's the same exact amount of damage that it would normally do in 0.4 seconds. It's just only applying it for 0.4 seconds, which means that as a Venom assassin or a person who is utilizing Venom, you want to attack as quickly as humanly possible. It ceases to be about stab and run away like Poison Dagger, because Poison Dagger is over 12 seconds. So I don't want to stick around for 12 seconds. I'm going to stab you, I'm going to run away, and I'm going to let the poison tick down. However, because Venom only lasts 0.4 seconds, it's not about stab and run away, it's about hit as many times as you possibly can. Because every single time you swing, you're going to apply another 0.4 seconds, and every time you swing, you're going to apply another 0.4 seconds, and it's going to just rip down HP, because the 0.4 seconds is going to apply a massive amount of damage during that time frame. All poison damage that you have from any source is going to be added into Venom. So let's say, for instance, I was like rocking as many poison damage charms and poison damage items as I possibly could. So how big is the inventory? I mean, let's assume even that we take our Heraldric Cube out, and the only thing we have in is a torch and an Annihilus Charm. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we also have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 times 4. So let's run these calculations real quick. So 8 times 4 plus 5 is a total of 37 possible locations for our poison damage charms. Let's assume that we have really nice poison damage charms. In fact, you know what? Let's look up a really nice poison damage charm real quick, just so that we're sure that we have a very nice one. I can never remember what the max is on poison damage charms. They're rather hard to come by in their highest form. And I do remember that back in the day, they used to be higher than others. In fact, if you guys remember what the highest amount was before they got nerfed, put that down in the comments, because I can't remember right off the top of my head what the highest number is now after they've gotten nerfed. But I have one here that's 313 poison damage over 11 seconds, and this is in Diablo 2 Resurrected, so I'm going to use this one. So let's assume we have 30, what was it again? 37. So let's assume we have 37 small charms, so toxic small charm of anthrax. So 313 times 37 is a total of 11,581 poison damage, right? But it's over 11 seconds, which is not what we need. So let's find the second value. So divide by 11 seconds, which gives us 1,052 damage per second. All right. Then we need to find the 10th of a second value, which is going to require us to divide this by, 10 again, I believe. We have to divide this by another 10. All right, so we're going to divide this by 10, which is going to get us the second value, or the 10th of a second value, which is 105. We're going to multiply that by 4, and we're going to round it. We might as well just round it. So 421 is how much would get added to our Venom. And our Venom is currently at max. Let's check that real quick. At level 22, we are looking at 495, so we would add 495 to this. And we would be dishing out about 916 poison damage every 0.4 seconds. Now, don't be too dismayed by this, because if we can attack relatively fast, we might attack, 2 or 3 times in a certain period of time. And that's kind of the weird thing about Venom, especially when you're dealing with a dual claw assassin who is hitting multiple times, or maybe you have an extremely fast kick set up and you are kicking multiple times. You can potentially kick multiple times per second, and you could dish out some pretty nice damage. But let's, for instance, multiply this out by... let's see here. Let's figure out what this would be over 11 seconds, for instance, over our original value. So we would divide this by I think it's 0.4. God, these my math skills are not up to par when it comes to this kind of stuff. But we could very easily multiply this out. Trying to think here. Let's actually remove some of these large numbers off the side here. So just round it to 916. So 916 times Mr. Nice. I'm trying to do math here, Mr. Nice. 916. I don't know. I find it easier, instead of multiplying it, just to divide it out and get the individual numbers, because it just makes a lot more sense to me that way. So if we divide it by 4, we should end up with the 229 value, which is the 10th of a second, and then we can multiply that out by 10, which will get us the full second value, which is 2,290 over 1 second, and then times 11, which will get us to the damage of the charms, which is 25,190. And I don't know why I just didn't do it that way in the first place. I was trying to go some fancy route, and it just didn't work out very well for me. But as you can see, 25,190 over 11 seconds is certainly a lot more interesting of a number than 916 over 0.4. And this is the kind of odd thing that comes about with Venom, and why Venom doesn't really look as attractive as it actually is, because of course Venom does in fact have some oddities to it here in the way that it applies damage. And it's not without, cause, because as far as I'm concerned, when you're looking at something like this and you see that low number, you don't think in your head that poison damage is quick. You don't think poison damage procs relatively fast. All you think of is that's a low number, and that doesn't seem very high or very useful. Now, what could Venom potentially be useful for? Well, Venom can be useful in whirlwind builds. It can be useful in kick builds. It can be useful in all sorts of builds where you might necessarily want some extra damage. And poison, of course, also will prevent regeneration. But the problem with Venom is that poison does not prevent regeneration unless it is ticking. So basically, how it works is there are individual frames. The game has, for instance, 25 frames, and 25 frames, each individual frame, something can tick. Either a regeneration can tick or a poison can tick. However, Venom doesn't have a long duration, which means that, yes, Venom will cause regeneration not to be in effect when Venom is active on a target, but because Venom is only active on a target for 0.4 seconds, you are more often than not going to prevent regeneration. Because the second that Venom runs out, which is literally 0.5 seconds later, they are able to regenerate. For every single frame that regeneration is not, or that the poison is not consuming those frames. The easiest way to look at this is that when you're in combat and you are fighting a monster, the monster will turn green. If the monster is green, then every frame of the regeneration is being consumed by poison. If the monster is not green, then that means that every frame is not being consumed by the poison and they can still regenerate. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when we are talking about a venomous skill that apparently Mr. Nimoy hates because he doesn't want to sit still today. And as always, keep watching.